If you love classic cars, then Donald loves you. One of the singular glories of the Nick Begovich collection are the cars which he bought new and cherished from new. This is an example of one, a 1955 Porsche 356A Speedster 1600 Super. Nick bought this car new in Los Angeles and retained it until his passing. This car has covered 10,400 miles from new and appears basically as a 1 or 2 year old used car. It's absolutely astonishing. The original paint covers every one of the surfaces except for the passenger door, which was repainted probably 4 decades ago. The interior with these wonderful sport seats is as it was when he drove it off the showroom floor, and it just has the spirit of the Speedster and everything that it meant, especially in Southern California. Of course, the story of the Porsche 356 Speedster is well known, but I'll repeat a little bit of it here because it bears repeating quite well. Max Hoffman, the brilliant importer of Porsche cars at the time, who also was responsible for some of the other great American sports car stories, said to Porsche, "We need to have a car that we can sell to the weekend racing enthusiast, something that costs a little less than your other cars, your Porsche Cabriolets or your coupes, but that he can drive during the week to work, take it to the racetrack on weekends, run, win, and drive back to work on Monday. This will only do your brand well because it will show people how these cars are meant to be used and what makes your car so special." Well, they came up with the America Roadster, which was a very interesting concept, but not quite what Max Hoffman had in mind. So they went back to the drawing board and came up with this, basically a decontented Porsche 356 Cabriolet. So instead of the beautifully formed dual-layer padded roof of the Cabriolet, this has a simple, very rudimentary one-layer fold-up top. Also, to make it easier for racing, it has a lower, more raked windshield, which in fact could be bolted off the car for racing if you wanted. And to save weight, it doesn't have roll-up windows. Instead, side curtains and a simple hollowed-out door that tells you that this is a car meant for business. And this car did the business. It was extremely successful on racetracks across the United States and showed people what Porsches were meant to do, and really, I think, established the brand here as the racing car for the gentleman. It's quite interesting, too, looking at this car and what it represents in this wonderful ruby red finish with the dog dish hubcaps, the satin finished wheels, the stone guards on the headlights. This just absolutely screams Southern California fun. With the tonneau cover so the top would never be up, park the car, zip it up, protect it from the elements, get back in, blast off. It's absolutely a wonderful thing to experience, and the essential nature of a Speedster speaks to what Porsche established itself as a brand. Its brand identity, the giant killer. Porsche 356 Speedsters like this frequently beat in class competition cars far bigger. You look at old film of SCCA racing on the East Coast and the West Coast, you'll see these things battling like little buzzing bees against 300 SLs and Corvettes and holding their own. This is a car that just gives you the essence of what it's like to drive an essential race car. It's something that I think Porsche still lives on that reputation today, even though the Porsches of today, as capable as they are very different vehicles than this. This is a car whose build quality appealed to the engineer in Nick Begovich, whose essential elemental shape appealed to the aesthete in him, and its usability appealed to the practicality. This is very much a Nick Begovich car. So, what's it like to drive a slightly used Porsche Speedster? Well, it's putting it into its element. Now, let's just say that Nick Begovich decided one day to take a day off, as he rarely did, and drive from Fullerton, let's say up to Montecito. A nice ocean drive, avoiding the freeway. He might have had an experience something like this, although here in Rhode Island right now, it's ever so slightly colder than it might have been on the Pacific Coast Highway. One of the things that also is very true about this car is that it's really difficult to drive slowly. It doesn't like to lug in a gear right now. I'm at 2,000 RPM and the car is very unhappy. It's a car that really needs to go. And that's one of the things that makes a Speedster such a lively companion. The analogy is overused, especially by me, about the eager puppy. But a Speedster really is an eager puppy. You know, I'm in the middle of training a puppy right now, and I think that she and the Speedster have a lot in common. The Speedster really comes into its own when you use all of the rev band. It just feels tight. It's of a piece. It's wonderful to be in the car, that you get this real sensation of speed and comfort and control. And of course, the sound of the engine. You know, it's only 1956, but the 356 at this point, especially in this form, feels a world away from the Beetle that it all started with. And it's clear that it just must have been an absolute blast for the owners of these cars to drive them from home, from their shop, to the track, paint the numbers on the side or tape them on, and have a great time. The Speedster makes a great companion today, as much as it did in the mid-1950s. A nice tweed cap, a tweed jacket to keep you warm, a set of driving gloves with this narrow but really great and responsive wheel. Even at the very tame speeds that we're driving right now, you can feel the liveliness in this car. The rear end just wants to step out, but you can feel exactly what the car is doing, so it never feels troublesome. An air-cooled car is really cold-blooded in a cold climate like we're in right now. This is a car, I think, that was really happiest in Southern California, but it's certainly making me happy here in Rhode Island. And to know that I'm driving a car that has been so lightly enjoyed and so lovingly and expertly recommissioned by our friends at Road Scholars down in North Carolina is really fantastic. The sport seats are really comfortable, quite supportive without being restrictive in any way. They give you a lot of confidence because basically putting this car in place is a matter of holding onto the wheel, feeling your weight shift in the seat. It's really quite wonderful. I can see why so many people are totally addicted to the Speedster, although it's really a car that you have to drive with the top down. With the top up, although I don't have very clear memories, I imagine it must be like what I must have felt like being a baby in the carriage with the top up when it got too sunny or too windy. It's just not a real comfortable feeling. This is really how you want to be. The engine revs so freely. It's really interesting in considering the breadth of the Begovich assortment. The cars that he bought and kept and savored over the years. So different in so many ways, and yet sharing so many similar characteristics. A connection to the drive. It's just like when we were driving the Begovich Gullwing, another mid-1950s German sports car. And the feeling of engineering excellence combined with essential design is just everywhere in this car.